Hello and welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Alexander technique. My name's Alida and I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and I'm a vocal coach. And I'm here with Marisa De Silva, who's professor of voice at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. Marissa, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you, Alida, for having me.
So Marissa, if you could tell us a little bit about what exactly is Alexander technique and just give us a little bit of a background on it.
Okay, great. Yes, so the Alexander technique is a technique that changes habits, habitual responses. It increases awareness of our whole self, not just body, but we consider mind-body unity. We call that psychophysical unity, and it helps to create opportunities through different choices that we make. So the namesake of Alexander technique comes from Frederick Matthias Alexander, who was somebody who originated this technique. He was originally from Tasmania. He lived about 100 years ago, from the end of the 19th century to the middle of the 20th century. He was an actor, and as voice users, we could also sympathize with actors also, because they have to be able to vocalize on stage a lot. And what happened was he would get hoarseness when he would be on stage, and he went to doctors and therapists, and what he was prescribed usually was to do vocal rest. And sometimes we're prescribed that now too, for good reason. But what happened was whenever he would go back on stage, he would get the same issue. And so he went on almost close to 10 years of a self-discovery journey using mirrors. He would observe himself breathing. He would observe himself speaking, using a mirror, and he realized that there were some things that he was doing to himself that was causing that hoarseness. And so eventually he figured out a few principles that he would teach first in Australia and Tasmania, and then in England. And that developed into the Alexander technique now. But like I said, basically it is a way of changing habitual patterns. That may include tension habits. If we have too much tension, when we're given a certain stimulus, we tense up. If we're in front of people and we have to sing and we're not ready to sing, we all sympathize with this. We all experience performance anxiety. Many of us actually do. And in those situations, we have that stimulus from the audience, we feel it, and we somehow tense up. Maybe that shows up, manifests in our shoulders going up, neck tensing, breath getting shallow, and other physiological things like heartbeat racing, things like that. But those are all responses that we have. Through studying the Alexander technique, we can become more aware of our habitual responses and let go of bad habits that we might have.
Well, that's fantastic. And thank you for that explanation. September is Health and Wellness Month. So I thought, what a better way to celebrate. This is a great way to celebrate Health and Wellness Month, because I've seen changes in my clients who have studied Alexander technique. I think sometimes body awareness can allow us to become more authentic performers. And it also helps minimize stress and strain on the voice.
Yes.
The second question is, how do you think singers will benefit from studying Alexander technique, or even teachers of singing?
That's a really great question. I'm a singer. I've been teaching the technique for about 10 years. And now I feel that I cannot separate the two in my teaching because our bodies, as a singer, ourselves, we are the instrument. And kinesthetic awareness is one of the major things that we start learning in Alexander technique. But when we have our whole instrument to think about, and if we're not aware of what is happening in our bodies or in our throat or how we're reacting to situations, then it could actually impede on what could be a potentially wonderful experience in singing. And so as a singer, one of the best things that I have started to realize as I was studying the Alexander technique was I was becoming more aware of how I'm reacting to the stimulus I receive from my voice teachers, how I react to situations in performance, and make slight adjustments as I go because I am not habitually responding to the situation without realizing what I'm doing. And that has sometimes resulted in becoming a little less tense in my approach to singing, or if it was a problem of, for example, a singer who somehow, who might be phlegmatic or sort of flabby all the time and who might need a little bit more tone or more work. In Alexander technique, we talk about how we could achieve a balance. So it doesn't mean that you should not have any tension. There should be the right amount of tension for a given activity. And that's where, by fine-tuning our kinesthetic awareness, we're able to find that middle ground, that perfect place of not too much tension and not under supporting something that we might need to achieve. And in singing, that's really the activity that we need to do, right? We can't be tensing all the time and making our voices so tense and our bodies so tense. But at the same time, if we're not upright and allowing our breath to really do what it needs. And we might sometimes see that in our students, with young students, especially nowadays. Sometimes we see students who come with poor posture. They're always looking at their phones, caving their chest in, and their whole bodies are sort of coming downwards. And in singing, we are always taught to kind of think about being tall or high scat. When we think about teaching from an Alexander technique perspective, by changing the directives we use could make a significant impact onto our students. So if we're told by a teacher to raise your chest and roll your shoulders back, that's what a student would do. But at the same time, they might be pinching their lower back, they might be pinching their upper back too, and pushing down onto their rib cage. They might be doing all sorts of things that might be counterproductive to what the teacher actually meant in the first place. Mm-hmm. And so first, a teacher should be the mirror of what a student needs to see. So through mirror neurons, we're always constantly mimicking what others are doing. And so obviously a teacher shouldn't be slouching at the same time when they're teaching. But at the same time, instead of thinking about rolling your shoulders back or hiking your chest up, there are some directives that Alexander technique teachers use, which is to first notice your neck, allow your neck to free, which allows for the head to balance on top of your spine. In that direction, we call it head forward and up, to allow your back to lengthen and widen. And that means that it's not about the shoulders rolling back and forward, but it's about finding that width across your chest and the width across your back. It's not just the front, it's also the back too. And so allowing for the student to become more aware of not just this part, but also their back, also into their pelvic area too. All of this, by changing the directives from the teacher, could make a significant impact on what the student will perceive and be able to produce in their sounds.
Wow. I think all of that is so fascinating, and because very often we quickly want to correct the client's posture, right? And I think if we bring awareness to what they're doing and give those 3 simple directions. So can you tell us those 3 things one more time so we can maybe actually do that just as we're sitting here? And those of you who are watching at home, so let's try that.
Right. So first, think about your sitting bones also, so that you're sitting on your sitting bones, not on your tailbone.
Okay.
And then you could think about your neck.
Okay.
To relax, neck to release. This might sometimes also mean that if a student is used to going, I'll just show you really quick. If the neck is a little bit tense or they're into a slouching mode, the neck will go like this and the head will sort of fall back. So from there, something like this. But from there, we're trying to get the neck to release so the head could go forward and up. So from here to allowing the neck to release, head to go forward and up, which then takes away the pressure from your spine. So the last directive is to allow your back to lengthen and widen. So sometimes that may mean that the student's head from this kind of position, it'll become with their chins falling down a little bit to allow for them to release.
I can feel that for sure. And just that minor change has complete watching how you are postured and how you are aligned. So if you're like this, they're going to kind of hear that, right?
And even that tension releasing here, have any jaw tension. Sometimes it could be that, they have TMJ or they could be squeezing and the jaw falling backwards. And so if they could allow that head neck to release, head to go forward and up, and the back to lengthen and widen, they're holding their breaths, then so that could sing the breath.
Based on it's not like, well, now I'm breathing for singing, and I go into this to be aware of our habits, and then it's about changing and seeing what's with you. And so Marisa De Silva, everyone, she's an expert on the Alexander technique. If you've got questions, you can put them in the comments box below. Thank you so much.
Thank you.